Welcome to Lessons on Advice, the podcast where we explore the journey of four young-ish advisors as we navigate the challenges of our first years in the financial advice profession. I'm still Ben Butler, and in each of our episodes, we're taking a closer look at the ups and downs, the struggles, and the triumphs as we break through this profession of ours. Now, breaking into financial advice is no easy feat, from tackling tough exams to securing that all-important first regulated role. The journey is anything but straightforward. But once you're there, the real learning begins, and from understanding clients to mastering the nuances of financial products and regulations. Today, we're tackling a topic brought to us by one of our listeners, Freddie Mead, who asks, should you start fresh as an advisor or work your way up through the ranks? Beginning as an administrator, then a paraplanner, before finally stepping into a financial advisor role. Now, we've each got our own thoughts on the decision, and we'll weigh up the pros and cons of each approach and give some valuable insights from our own experiences. They just keep coming back. Joining me today, we've got Adam Tweedie, Will Hartley, and Anna Evans. Actually, is that right? Adam Tweedie, you got married recently. What's the new name?
Yeah, no, Adam Tweedie. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Emily's name has changed. It got changed on Instagram within about 30 seconds of us being married, I think. So, yeah.
Was it a good day? Was it a better honeymoon?
Yes. So 10 nights in Mallorca there, which was fantastic. Yeah. And you know what it's like, though, came back to a barrage of emails that I had to go through. But it wasn't so fun on Monday, but it was great fun.
Did you end up taking your laptop away with you? That's what we want to know.
Yes, I did, and I opened it once, which is not too bad.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. And it was just making sure that it was a few things I had to ping across to people. So, yeah, but it was damage limitation. Yeah, on the return.
Fantastic. Brilliant. How is my married life? Is it any different?
No difference at all. I think I look slightly more mature when I've got my wedding ring on in meetings, but apart from that, nothing at all. Yeah,
silver or gold? Was it silver or gold?
Yeah, silver. Got a silver watch, so went for silver. Yeah,
lovely.
I think my ring was about a quarter of the price of Emily's, so I was a second thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's normal, isn't it, Anna?
Okay, we got an interesting one today, and it's a question I feel like I'm asked a fair bit. I don't know about the rest of you, and I think we're quite well posed to at least give our thoughts on it, because we've got a 50-50 split on how we each got into the profession. So me and Will, we went through the administrator, paraplanner, advisor route, whereas Adam and Anna, that is going to maybe slip up at some point today, went directly in straight as advisors, freshly qualified. So who should we start with? Should we start with Will? Do you want to talk us through your thoughts on Freddie's question, and just give us your insight?
Yeah, so just to go back, I started as an apprentice, worked my way from apprentice into admin, and the sort of role at the place I was working was very similar to a paraplanner role, slightly different, but it was sort of a hybrid between admin and paraplanner, and then worked my way up there before becoming an advisor. I think it's a really good way to start to understand the industry and understand the processes as well. But I think this sort of the catch-22 with that is it's great to understand all the processes, but as I've seen, different financial advising firms and going self-employed with different bigger companies above you, you end up with different processes. So I think it's great to understand the processes and everything, but sometimes I think if you're not going to end up advising where you've done the admin, part of that experience might be slightly wasted. But I also think any exposure to the industry you get is going to be beneficial. So whether that is in compliance, whether that's in admin, whether it's paraplanner, whatever role you're doing, if it's within the sector, I think it's definitely beneficial. But for me personally, because I started as an apprentice, I was looking to be qualified in advising really young. And it was a bit daunting. I do have a bit of a baby face as well, which doesn't help. So it was a bit daunting for me to go, well, nobody really wants a young financial advisor. Everyone's picturing some old person in a suit or, looking more professional than I might look some mornings. So for me, it was really important to be able to say, yes, I'm young, but I've had, and coming up now to 6 years exposure in the industry, working my way up. So I know the ins and outs, and my technical knowledge is there to fall back on as well. Whereas I think if I'd have come straight into it at this age, I'd be feeling a little bit more nervous. So it just helps to build up your confidence as well. And I think for me, knowing that was going to be my end goal, the whole time I was building up, doing the admin career and everything else, I had people coming up to me who potentially wanted advice, who were being put on the back burner, and building up my network so that when I came, I sort of hit the floor running rather than starting from a standstill. So I think that was beneficial as well. I think that summarises my sort of opinions on it. I think it definitely has its benefits, and I do. For me, age was massively an influence there.
How do you tackle that? What have you ever had any clients that have commented on your age before? And what was your kind of response?
Yeah, to be honest with you, any client I see face to face tends to comment. Over Teams, I seem to get away with it. Never had anyone say anything over Teams, but every face to face meeting I've had the comment. They all do it in slightly different ways. Some of them being up north are a bit more abrupt than others. But to be honest, it's like I say, I've got that to fall back on, that I've been in the industry nearly 6 years now, and I go into that, and I have had someone be quite confrontational about it and a bit, well, why wouldn't I go with someone older? To which you're then sort of on the back foot. But my argument straight away is, well, you can end up going with, I can send you to so-and-so in our office, but they're only going to pass you back to me in 3 or 4 years' time when they retire, so you might as well have me all the way through. But also, there's yes, I'm fresh, I've got the experience. You can also, there's people who I work with who have come into the industry fresh and don't have, like we're talking about here, come straight into the industry as an advisor. They don't have half as much exposure to the industry as I do. So just because someone's older doesn't necessarily mean they've been in it as long.
Can I just go around the room? I don't think we've ever actually spoken about this, about how old all of us are. I don't think there's any problems with saying, is there?
Never.
I was looking for Anna's reaction there.
No, I'm never bothered by it. I know, it affects some women, some women, I don't get wrong. I wouldn't be afraid to say I've got a few laughter lines come in and a few wrinkles on the forehead, but I'm still fresh. I still think I'm still young. So I'm 34. So I'm the nice side of 30, I still think. Haven't hit that middle bit yet. So come back to me next year and I'll tell you how upset I start to feel.
As an advisor, you're still very young, though.
Exactly.
What is the average age? 57? Is that what
57,
I think so, yeah.
57 is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So still very young.
And I do think that makes me feel young. I do think I'm like, okay, I'm definitely still young. When you hear that and you think, okay, in this industry, we are very much still young. I know I've still got, we talk about pensions and stuff, and we still look at the fact that we've got 30 years in them. I'm like, I've got a lot of time to still go. So yeah, come on, guys.
Will.
So I think I'm the other end of the spectrum in the pod, but so I'm 23. So yeah.
I had no idea. Honestly, I thought you were like 26, 27.
Yeah.
I had no idea you were 26.
Well, this is it. I told you. Teams, video calls, get away with it.
I think you're right. Teams makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, massively.
Do you want to guess, Ben?
Oh.
I don't know. I've got the innate ability of being rude somehow. Things. I think me and you are slightly younger than me. I'm going to say 27.
I am 27.
27.
Hey!
Yeah, 27.
That's impressive.
28 in November. So yeah, 27.
Lovely.
I'm hanging on to the right side of 30 at 29. So.
29.
I think it's always really interesting when you play this game. If you ever start in a job and everyone always kind of goes, so go on, like trying to guess the age. It's always so awkward, isn't it?
It's definitely a good thing, I think, in finance, when, as Will said, you're going to get passed back to me anyway because this advisor will be retiring. So I would rather a younger advisor that will see me all the way through retirement instead of, changing advisors halfway through. But also all the older ladies and gentlemen that will be retiring, it's a good thing for us in the industry. So
absolutely,
we're quite lucky in that sense.
there's going to be even more of us coming up, right? You know, there's just this industry has to employ sort of people more younger because we've got to take over. There's got to be someone taking over, and I think it's important that they start bringing younger people into this industry.
I think
absolutely.
Someone once said, "Oh, sorry, Ben."
No, I was just going to say, Will. So sort of reflecting on your journey so far, if you could go back and change the way that you did it, and you got to where you are, would you do it? Would you go through the routes, or would you go direct to an advisor?
I think I'd definitely go through the route I've done. I think it's helped me get the knowledge I got. The only thing that I might have done differently is how long I spent a long time doing my exams, spreading them out, because quite intentionally, like I say, so I could say that I'd been in the industry a long time. I don't think anyone wants a 21-year-old financial advisor, to be fair. So it was quite intentional and quite thought through when I did it. But one of the benefits for me was moving to the firm where I'm at right now, because I got a lot more exposure. So I think part of it sometimes is where you do your admin or power planner role is more important than whether you do it or not. Because if you do it for example, for somebody who's getting to the end of their practice, all they do is reviews, are you actually going to gain that much exposure that's going to benefit you as an advisor? Potentially not. Whereas if you're doing it for a firm or an individual who is going out there, doing the networking, doing the first meetings, doing the recommendations, and you're seeing the whole spectrum of pensions, investments, and insurance, then I think that's where you really start to cement your knowledge.
And I think just being in the room with other advisors whilst you're in that position is invaluable. And it doesn't matter if they're great advisors or crap advisors, because you learn of what good and bad is. But I think, and I'll assume this is the case for you, for Adam and Anna, whereas you didn't have as much exposure to other advisors doing the job, sort of in that scenario. So do you think that was a really good sort of bonus for doing it, rising through the ranks?
Yeah, definitely. And it's observing meetings as well. You're never going to be able to, no advisor's going to go, someone who's nothing to do with me, come along and observe me meetings, GDPR and all that. So getting to actually see meetings, by the time I became an advisor, I'd seen probably 4 or 5 different advisors do it very different. Some of them not very well, some of them really well. And that's what, for me, towards the last year or so before I became an advisor, I'm sat there going, do you know what? I'm watching other people not do it that well. I'm biting at the bit now. I know how to, and it's like when you've passed your theory test and you're just going, come on, let me drive now. So I think when you're in the room and you're watching people do it, you do pick up the amount of different metaphors and analogies for saying different things you pick up over the years, and most of them, I think we've said before, most of them are absolute rubbish, but then every once in a while you'll use one and you'll go, I didn't even know I had that one in the back pocket somewhere.
Okay, quick fire. Everyone give their best financial planning analogy.
God, don't do that to us. Come
on. I'll give you a few seconds to think of it. The best one I've heard is when talking about doing something with pensions, and it's the one I use all the time. It was the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is now. And it applies for pensions. I use it all the time.
I don't think I have any that I use.
Must do.
I was going to say it earlier anyway, was when you have that conversation with someone about a younger advisor versus an older advisor, I can't remember where I picked this up from, but someone said, you want an advisor who helps you to build your retirement plan, whereas you are part of their retirement plan, which is what you get with some of these older advisors. So I thought that was a good one.
Do you really not know any others?
It'll come back to me at some point, but no, not on the spot.
I had to look mine up because I couldn't remember the wording.
The
one about the turbulence of a plane and relating it to the stock market volatility, if you've heard of that. And you wouldn't jump off the plane, you would let the pilot land the plane safely, and the pilot is the fund managers. So that's quite a good one.
I've not heard one, but I like it.
Yeah. There is a more eloquent way of putting it, but that's the gist of it. That's the gist of it.
I know I do use some, but you've got to be in the mindset and just going, haven't you?
What's your classic, Will?
I was going to say the classic is always horses for courses. That one comes out every other month in some random review meeting.
Yeah,
I was going to say it's time in the market, not timing the market. That's the big one that I hear all the time.
An easy one as well, that if you've got a client moaning about returns or speaking about volatility, it's decades, not days. And I use that quite a lot, to be fair. Decades, not days. Simple,
These are great.
but gets the message.
Taking notes.
We could do a whole podcast on.
We really could.
Jot them down.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one view on. I'm dragging us back to the question because we get very undisciplined when answering these big questions. We go off on tangents.
We do.
So who wants to go next, Anna or Adam, to sort of touch upon the direct routes?
I think I'm happy to go first, Anna.
Go on, Adam.
Yeah, I think I originally sat my CMAP back in like 2014, but never actually advised. So I had a rough idea of what kind of financial exams were like. What, it touched on the FCA, which I hadn't really heard of apart from small print and adverts about banks. So it gave me a bit of knowledge. Then, as you know, career totally changed and ran a hospitality business, which I do think was a good thing because every day I was looking after people. I would tend to say there's quite a lot of crossover with hospitality and financial planning. You're basically looking after people and making sure that they're happy, which is a huge thing in hospitality, of course, as you know. Which I was going to ask Will about, when you sat your exams, I imagine you could turn around to a few advisors within the practice and say, can you help me with this calculation or whatever, and they might have been able to help. I didn't have that luxury, unfortunately, so I pretty much was on my own. So that I found that aspect hard. So I'd recommend that if you did have a route into practice, potentially before sitting your full diploma, it would help massively.
I totally agree. I think if I had the option of going down the route that Will has gone down, that may have been a driver. I don't know about you. How quickly did you do the exams?
So I pretty much. So I didn't do the RO route. So I done it through LIBF. So it's slightly different. But I pretty much it was COVID, so I had nothing else to do apart from read these thick books. But I was also in a forum that were. It's got an LIBF forum, and they were talking about, if you had any questions, you'd fire it onto this forum. But there was quite a lot of people that weren't really asking questions and weren't speaking to other students within the forum because they were in a practice with chartered advisors. So they were quite clearly just asking them questions. So I found it tough. And as you know, I actually failed it first time round until my paper was remarked, which was very good, and then managed to pass it. So I would say it was a struggle. It was quite hard, especially not coming from an industry background as well. I imagine you, Will, picked up quite a lot of things prior to sitting the exams, working within the office.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps, especially just from doing even the most basic admin. You'll see all the products and you'll see what they're used for. So you're even starting with a good understanding of where the products are up to, and so you've got that foundation knowledge, and that definitely helps. And like you say, if ever I came across something that you don't know in the book, you go, right, I need 5 minutes with one of you, and half the time, if it's something really bizarre, you're going to be struggling to get someone to help you with it anyway, because as we know, the textbooks aren't always practical.
And the good thing what I love to see as soon as I joined the industry properly and I was advising that, all these calculations, which, you'd go crazy at, there is calculators for them. So, you don't need to sit and work out the, tax implications of an investment bond. It's all done for you. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. I do.
Ben, what about yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's based on the situation. I think depending on where you sort of are in your career, to sort of the route that's applicable to you. I think if you're a second careerist like you and Anna, then I think it is possible to go to the advisor route, although I certainly don't think it makes it easier.
Mhm.
You're sort of you can't have it all. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't go straight to advisor and not miss out from the benefits of being an administrator and a power planner, because I think those roles give you context to what goes on behind the scenes, because we work with these people.
Yeah.
And when we work with them, we sort of understand what's going on in the background for them. So if they're having troubles, we understand why they're having those troubles. Like if I send an administrator an LOA and it's not back in 2 weeks, if I hadn't done that role, I think, oh, the administrator's slacking here. But I understand of the complexities of what's going on and what's involved with getting that LOA back. So if you can afford to go through the route, because money does come into it, you get a lower salary as administrator. I think a decent one round where me and Anna live is about 30k, and then the paraplanner can earn a bit more than that. If you're leaving a career that's paying more, then it's going to be a struggle to drop down to those salaries for 2, 3, 4 years before you're becoming an advisor. So I took a lot from it, being an administrator and a paraplanner, and I was awful at both of those things. I wasn't a great paraplanner. I was an even worse administrator. But I was good in it. Because I'm not very good at administration or paraplanning.
What was it? What was the jobs? What was it in those jobs that you think you were so bad at?
I think I'm putting myself down a little bit. I wasn't horrendous. I never got sacked.
You've got a high bar there, Ben. High bar. Whenever I got a new role, I was always looking at the one that would get me to advisor. That was always what I was reaching for. So I might be really happy that I moved from administration to paraplanning. But I was always then looking at what the next goal was, and that would usually be involved passing an exam or normally passing the exams, to be fair. That's the main barrier that you think. And I think that was the main barrier that I thought I was trying to get past, getting qualified. Then I got qualified. I was like, okay, I need to get a job now. And that's the real hard thing to get past. So, yeah, I'm glad I went through the route that I did, and I learned lots from it. And I still use a lot of that information now, particularly self-employed, where I am doing my own administration. Sometimes I am doing my own paraplanning. I did 2 of my own letters last Friday, and
we're all laughing because we've heard the backlash of this already.
It's just so painful. It's just I thought they were really easy letters, and I've just missed silly little things off them, like annuity quotes and risk of ruin calculations, and I can't remember what the other one was. But it's the little nuances that you would only know if you were a paraplanner. So, for example, I did a shortened process for income from a client's pension, but because they were vulnerable, I should have gone through the full process. So I'll have to start it all over again. But that's not necessarily from me being a bad paraplanner. It's just because I don't do it as my day job. So yeah, I think it swings around.
It's easy to miss things.
Yeah.
It's a lot. When I first started, I pretty much paraplanned everything just because I found it such a nightmare. But in the long run, I realised I should have just taken the time and really sat down and properly understood the process, because I found when I was actually presenting the solution, I would look at it prior to presenting it, of course, but it was always, I didn't really I understood what I was telling the client, but I didn't understand it to a kind of granular level, which I should have. So I would definitely recommend to do your own paraplanning, at least for a while. But the luxury of paraplanners is I had cases being written for me when I was on holiday over the last 2 weeks. So I came back and there was 2 cases sitting on my desk. Even though you pay X amount for that service, you are making money off the back of it. So it's still very worthwhile.
I always found that if it was the first time I did that case, or the first time I was kind of advising on that product, I've had the paraplanner to do it, and then I've bombarded them with questions and said, why did you do that? And what made you include that in there? And I've found that actually, being a new advisor, they have been incredibly helpful in talking me through it. And I've said, I would like to do these myself the first time, but the first time I'm doing it, I want to understand it and I want to get to know it. And so you're right, if you've come down that route, you've learned it already. You've done that. So when you come to this stage, you're not having to ask all these questions. But I do. I am kind of, each time I put in one through, I'm kind of like, can you just explain that to me in a bit more detail? What, why have you added this, etc. And I found that really, really helpful actually, because and as I said, I haven't found a paraplanner that hasn't shut me down just yet, and they've been really, really helpful. But yeah, I think it's really important, and I do feel that is something we have missed in coming through this route so quickly. Is you're right. I don't know how long it takes for these administrators. So when I'm calling them up, trying to be all nice and sweet and kind of saying, where's my LOA? I don't get it. I don't, and I have done a few myself now, so I am starting to understand a bit more. And I do think that even if you have come down this road, the same with you, Adam, you've got to give it a go. Don't send them all to admin. Don't send them all to paraplanner. You're great if you have those in your teams. If you come through an employed route, for instance, you do. Sometimes you have those, don't you? Have your admin and paraplanners that you automatically use. But I really think it's important, even if you just come and sit with them for a few days and learn what they do, because it's paramount to this business, I think. And there's so much that you can learn from what they do to help your business go forward. I think it's incredibly helpful to get that done and to do that as well.
And it depends on what sort of network you've joined or if you're in an IFA, but there are various different methods of writing business as well. I know some firms use AI as well, which is useful without going into too many details, but there is other ways, and it is becoming easier and more streamlined as well, especially if you're aligned to one of the kind of bigger corporate structures in the background.
One day we'll do an episode on AI.
We will. Yeah, we talk. It comes in every now and again, doesn't it? We've mentioned it.
We've mentioned it every single episode.
Have we actually?
Yeah, I'm sure we have.
Yeah.
It's going to be. I think it's going to change this business. So there is certainly things to talk about.
Save it.
We'll save it.
We've got to save it for the episode.
The other thing I did, and I think actually this helped me. So I remember mentioning that I went down the protection route before I went into wealth. Game changer for me. And I genuinely think that, if you are going to go down that faster track route, easing yourself into it in that kind of route might be helpful. I know obviously some people that did the same, intense course that I did, and went straight into wealth and were just like, I've never sat in front of a client before, and I've had a meeting in my diary, and now I've got to sit with them and talk about it. And it is daunting, isn't it? Like that first meeting, I don't know, like my hands were all clammy, I was like fidgeting the whole time, and it is scary. But I think when I went down the protection route, I had very small amount of products to kind of speak to them about. I think the clients came to me with that need, so I wasn't trying to identify that need already. They'd very much identified that. So it was just learning how to have those conversations and to kind of really kind of build those relationships. And I think that was a really good way of easing me into it, because 3 months later or so, when I was then appointed as wealth advisor, I was like, okay, I've done this for 3 months, and I've done a smaller version, but now I feel like I can tackle it. Just add some more stuff involved, and I think it really helped. And that's another route. I think if you kind of do go down that more intense route, at least try and start with something like that.
Where do you carry out most of your meetings? Is it mostly face-to-face or over Zoom, or where?
Mostly Zoom. Yeah, mostly Teams or Zoom. I have recently been taking on more and more face-to-face. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, I've had more recently. I think, yeah, just it depends on the type of person. Maybe the older generation like to be seen. I've noticed. Yeah. What about you guys?
See, it's funny you say that, Anna, because I had an older client where I thought this is definitely an office visit. They literally live around the corner. Why wouldn't they? And they said, actually, I prefer Teams or Zoom because I can turn you up or down because I'm hard of hearing. So, or if you're talking rubbish, I imagine she'd mute me. But you know, she can control my volume rather than have me trying to shout at her or be too quiet. But for me, I think on a good week, I'd like it to be more face to face. I much prefer it. I think you just get a much better connection. But at the minute, it's probably 80% Teams, if not more.
See, I know what you're saying about face to face, and I think it's really important, initially at least. But I have a dream of having so many clients
Yeah,
when I've built up this business and servicing them, maybe from, anywhere in the world, I suppose, but
Yeah.
from Zoom, as well. That'd be quite a cool business, I think, to run, as well. And I think you can definitely give the same level of advice, like the way that we were chatting just now. But I do think it's important to see them in person, initially.
It would
I
be
haven't done it.
oh.
Go on.
I think it would be really interesting to talk to like an advisor that has obviously been pre and post COVID, because I think from even just speaking to a few, things have changed a lot, and obviously everything went online, didn't it? Because we had to. But it would be really interesting to see what their take is on kind of adapting and taking on this new like way of working and what they think about it.
Yeah. I have a client who works offshore and recently was in Taiwan, and I can service him perfectly well being in Taiwan. I'm in Glasgow, not quite as exotic, but and he loves it. And he's actually in Glasgow this week, so I'm seeing him tomorrow in person. So it's a good blended mix of, doesn't matter where he is in the world, I'm kind of looking after him. But when he's here, we can sit down in person, get a coffee, and chat about everything he's been up to. So it's quite a nice blended approach.
That's nice. Nice.
But maybe one day we'll be in a beach in Barbados servicing clients.
Wouldn't that be nice, guys? Wouldn't it be nice?
Well, Ben, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Talking about COVID times, it's like a flashback.
You're on mute, Ben.
I
We're
do
back.
this all the time, honestly. It's the worst habit of doing it. I've been chatting away to myself for so long. I've got a family member who works for Zoom, and they've got a new office, and they have a merch store in their new office that sells like hoodies and hats and t-shirts that just say you're on mute. And I'm desperate to get one of those for Christmas. Yeah, I think how meetings have changed. It has moved massively, as one would expect, to being over the virtual meeting since COVID. I remember being an administrator. We used to have clients in most days, and straight after COVID, we're not lucky, but we'd often have maybe one a month, if that. The meeting room just would never get used. I think that is mostly down to clients' preference and people who are a bit more comfortable to using these kind of things. Like, clearly not all of us can work out how the mute button works, but maybe by the next pandemic we'll work it out. But yeah, no, I think that is good. We've diverged again over to another topic. I'm honest, it's like herding
Bring us
cats
back.
with us, honestly. Everyone's been, haven't they? Anna, so what was the one lesson I've thrown you into the fire here, or whatever the phrase is? I'm losing control.
Sounds about right.
What was the one lesson that you learnt or wish that you'd learnt before becoming an advisor that you may have learnt as an administrator or a paraplanner?
Oh, good one. Time management. I think generally because things, especially from a admin and power planning side of things, take so much longer than you think they do. I mean, I think we've spent some time talking about this before. You know, the admin that we have to do takes a majority of my week. And so, you know, if I'd maybe learnt that before I was in this industry, I would have maybe. I'd like to think that I would have a bit more experience than that now, and I'd probably be able to get things done a lot quicker. Whereas I think now, you know, I like to do things right, so it probably takes me a little bit longer to do things than, you know, somebody who's been in this industry sort of five years younger than me, or whatever. So I think, yeah, I think if I'd gone down that route, my time management might be better because I wouldn't be taking so much time to do things because I think I would have been obviously more experienced in doing so. That isn't to say that, you know, give me a couple of years and I'll be there. It's just, you know, we're all learning still, aren't we? And you know, even less than a year into this industry, I've got so much to learn still, and I know it's going to be a couple of years before I can say, yeah, I'm nailing that now. Um, and even then, I doubt, you know, we'll all go on to other things and say we've still got lots more to learn, or there'll be new regulations coming out, or anything else. So, I do think there's one thing about this industry; it certainly keeps you on your toes. And so, yeah, I think if I was to choose to go down this route again, I possibly would go down that route. I think the age that I came into this industry and the impatience that I have when I came in was very much like, I want this and I want this now. Um, I wasn't prepared to sit around for a couple of years and do my exams and, you know, take a lower salary. As you know, I worked in investment banking, so I came from, and private equity, so I came from those environments, and I was like, you know, I'm not prepared to take an admin job to build that up. I want this, you know, this income, and I want it now. Am I getting that? Probably not. But you know, the point is, I'm very much impatient when it comes to things like that. You know, I did the fast track route and got it done ASAP. And I do know that, like, I'm still learning. And you know, there may be things I can learn from both you, Ben, and Will, in terms of, like, you know, all of the things that you guys have learned. And I know that you know, Ben and I obviously sit down quite often together, and he constantly gets questions from me. Well, why would you do it that way? And you know, talk to me about this. So yeah, it helps having friends in those places, anyways. So thanks, guys.
How not to do it.
Yeah.
I think this sort of conversation sort of opens up sort of a wider sort of, not issue that the profession has, but it's certainly to be pondered on how we feel the shortage of financial advisors is, that by making them be administrators or paraplanners, or throwing them straight into the deep end of being advisors. And a lot of the large firms, the big three, have their academies, which some of us have gone through. And there's certainly the strengths and weaknesses of those. And I think that the common, not failing, but not for lack of a better term, I'd say failing, is you are thrown straight into it and you've got to deal with it. And some people are good at managing that, and some people certainly aren't. I think we do lose some really good talent as a result of that. But then again, if the same person spent 5 years becoming administrators and then paraplanners and then advisors, would they get bored too quickly and move on to something else? I don't think that. It just seems like there's no midpoints to that. And I think that could be solved by what you said earlier, and with the protection advisor route, because I think that is a really good way to cut your teeth. And if you can be a protection advisor, there's no reason why you can't be a full wealth advisor.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it depends on the person as well. You've got to be, it depends on, you know, the time in your life and when you look to go into this. Like Will said, you know, if you're coming straight out of university, or from a younger age, you might want to go that slower route because you just feel that it kind of suits that I don't know, that time, I suppose. But yeah, for someone my age, you know, and a second careerist, I didn't want to sort of just cut my teeth on a bit here and there. I wanted to get in and I wanted to get going. So I do think it depends on the type of person you are, the type of, the route that you've come into. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot this industry. I could go into rants for a while about the things this industry needs some help on. But I think a young advisor, there is lots of options out there, but can we find them? That it's hard. It's hard. I do see more power planning jobs and more administrator jobs being advertised than I do for trainee financial advisors, and that's a big issue. I'm great for administrators and power planners that want to come down that route, but it's not so great for those people who want to delve in quite quickly, because unless you go down an academy route, or but if you study yourself, which people do, if people go out there and study themselves, then they're sat, kind of going, well, where are these jobs? Where, how do I get into an industry? Unless you go down the self-employed route. I know we can talk about the differences of those type of jobs at another day, but it's definitely something that I think has been spoken a lot about in various other podcasts, etc. And definitely something that needs to be done, because there's not much out there. And for younger people, there are some people that love this whole self-employed route and coming through that industry and being chucked in the deep end. But I also think possibly those other routes where you could work as a trainee advisor and really learn some seriously good skills from people who have been in this industry for a long time. I think that's something this industry is lacking a little bit. That's probably something for another day, because I'm sure I could talk about that for hours. Thoughts?
Okay, so finishing off, let's go around the room, the virtual room, and give a brief answer to the question. Okay, I think we've sort of nailed it down. It's one of those awful questions where it depends. But if you are in that route, say, you finished university, you've done one job, and you think, okay, actually financial advice is the way I want to go. I've got a little bit of experience, but relatively I'm still pretty wet behind the ears. What would be the advice that you would give Adam?
I would say, so my situation is totally different to that, but I would definitely go down the paraplanning route, I would say. I just think it gives you, I reckon there's a lot of paraplanners that have much better knowledge than me, and I'm out advising clients, put it that way. And there is noise.
Nope.
I think my initial answer would be just get in the industry in any way. Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
So to answer the question, I think it'd be just get into the industry in any way. But when we go back to what Anna was saying there, it's quite hard to find certain ways into the industry. And the easiest one is if you get an admin or power planner role, which has that natural ladder. So it might be easier to go down that route.
Yeah, I agree. I think exactly what Adam said, coming in through that industry, through the power planning route. And I agree, there's definitely a lot of power planners that are way more experienced in this, that could probably quite easily do this job. So yeah, I definitely think if I hadn't had the urgency to get into this, then definitely down the power planning route first.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo everything. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Literally.
God, literally, we got so close to the end and we just started having internet problems. Yeah, I'm going to echo what everyone said. And I think if you can afford it, go for the admin and power planner route. It's going to be boring at times, but you're going to learn a lot. And just from being in the room with other financial advisors, and I'm not saying, work from home and then maybe do the occasional Zoom meeting. If you can get in a physical office with other financial advisors, just hear how they talk on the phone, listen to the conversations they have, and ask them why they're doing certain things. That is the kind of thing that money just can't pay for. You can't do a course and get that kind of knowledge. So, yeah, I think that's pretty comprehensive
Unanimous.
answer. Yeah, there we go. So, Freddie, you've got your answer. Look, today's podcast has been completely built off the back of a question from one of you guys, and yeah, we're looking for loads more questions to keep us going and to have something to ramble on about, whether I'm on mute or not. So, look, we'd love to hear from you. What route are you considering, and what path have you taken in your own career? Please drop us a message on our socials and leave a review to share your thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us on Lessons of Advice. We'll be back in 3 weeks with another episode. We'll be bringing you fresh updates and deep dives into the world of financial advice. Until then, this is so cheesy, I can't believe I've written it. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, the best advice often comes from the lessons we learn along the way.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ChatGPT.
I wrote that. I swear to you, I wrote that. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.